For the first time since 1989, the University of Michigan's men's basketball teams are your national champions, and that's where we start. Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. Caroline, we knew last night we were getting arguably the best team against maybe the best coach. We had all of the storylines coming into it. Michigan, UConn played an ugly defensive battle, comes all the way down to the wire. 69-63 is the final. How did Michigan do it?
Mike Vrabel always used to say this when I covered the Tennessee Titans. It wasn't pretty, but it was beautiful. And that's exactly how I would describe this game last night. It was not pretty. It was a defensive slugfest. Both teams struggled to shoot the three. Both teams struggled to shoot in general. Michigan shot 38% from the field. UConn 31. You see the final score right there. A combined score of less than 130. Or I guess 132, math is hard, but gross. Like it was a slugfest. It at times looked like basketball through maple syrup, but my goodness, was it beautiful. And was it beautiful for Michigan and Dusty May? We talked so much all season long about how efficient Michigan's offense was. Incredibly high scoring. They could score consistently into the 80s and the 90s. That's largely what carried Michigan through a majority of the tournament. I mean, you look at the number of offensive juggernauts that Michigan had to go through just to get to the Final Four and to the national championship game. So Michigan's calling card, it felt like at times, was its offense. So if you would have told me that Michigan shot 38% from the field, if you would have told me that Michigan struggled as much with the three-point shot as they did last night, only 2 of 15 from three last night. And if you would have told me that Dan Hurley told Tracy Wolfson going into halftime, hey, we're playing the only brand of basketball we could play to win this basketball game, as he said with a little smirk on his face, I would have said, UConn is your national champion. I would have said UConn just won their third national championship in the last 4 years. But no, you said it, Fitz. Michigan is the better team. And what makes Michigan such a great team is the fact that all season long, they've been able to win in so many different ways. And especially last night in a national championship game, a place where UConn is oh so familiar. UConn, a team that's hung around with pretty much everyone in the tournament. And they did hang around last night. Against one of the best coaches, if not the best coaches in college basketball. Michigan didn't play their style and their brand of basketball. Michigan didn't play their best brand of basketball. Michigan didn't get the best of Yaxel Lindenborg last night, and they still found a way to win, and now they're national champions. That, I think, is the most impressive part of all of this.
Yeah, you're right. It wasn't the best night, and still winning showed such resilience. And I think there's a difference. Sometimes we look at these games and we say, well, it was ugly. We never know where to credit bad defense, or great defense, I should say, versus bad offense. Last night, I thought, was just disruptive defense everywhere. And, UConn, to your point, just was trying to get this thing lower and lower on a final score. The lower the score, the better UConn was going to feel about it. But what was interesting to me is that Michigan's presence at the rim was just so intimidating, particularly when UConn was trying to score. UConn did a much better job rebounding than I thought they would against the size of Michigan. That was one of the differences in how this game stayed close. But every time UConn seemed to drive to the lane, either the shot was disrupted, the shot was blocked. I think there were 6 blocks in this game, and I was stunned. It could have been 16, and I wouldn't have been shocked, right? So the amount of times hands were in the air for Michigan, they were disrupting shots. And even when they weren't there, it felt like Michigan was making UConn see ghosts. At the rim, the few times that UConn had clean looks, they were anticipating the pressure so much that they just missed at the basket over and over and over again. I think it was Michigan's presence at the rim that UConn had no answer for, which we expected. That's been one of their calling cards all year. That's one of the things that makes Michigan great. But I will double down on this. 0 for 16 from outside the paint. That was the stat line for Michigan in the first half. 0 for 16 not in the paint, and they still were up by 4. When you looked at the second half of this, there were several times where the lead got to 11, 12, and I kept thinking, yep, this is the moment where Michigan just runs away with it. Now, to UConn's credit, they kept fighting all the way down to the very end. This thing got a little bit more comfortable than I think Dusty May wanted it to get in the process of the last minute of the game. But I think for Michigan, a team that was scoring 90-plus on everybody at will through this whole tournament, to find a will to win against a Hurley team was so much national championship experience, so much big game experience, so much belief, and a brilliant head coach on the sidelines really speaks to how great this Michigan team is. We need to find a way to accept the fact that that championship game, I think, maybe wasn't as pretty and maybe didn't give us 150 offensive highlights, which is what we usually like. But in the process, I somehow earned even more respect for the national championship Michigan team, because winning that type of game just at tip of the cap to the ability to win in that situation where everything was going wrong, and UConn did a great job of making everything look bad along the way.
And I think it came down to, because to act like this game was never in doubt, I don't think is totally and completely accurate. Now, Michigan did, it felt like, at least for a majority of the game, it felt like Michigan had a strong control over it. But there were times in that game when I thought UConn's going to do the thing. UConn's going to do the thing that they've been doing, and that's continue to bear down, and that's continue to pick on their opponents, and that's continue to hang around. It feels like UConn's like an annoying fly at a barbecue. It's like they just keep buzzing around your face. They just annoy you. So there were times when I thought, okay, UConn's going to start doing the thing that they do best, the thing that Dan Hurley does best. But when it came down to it, Michigan just had something that you can't coach. Michigan had something that UConn just simply does not have. And Michigan had something that not a lot of teams in college basketball have this year, and that's size. Michigan was just bigger than UConn. You look at the points in the paint differential, 22 for UConn, 36 for Michigan. Michigan was dominating them in the paint, and also it felt like UConn at times just got so frazzled they didn't know how to defend the sheer and utter size of Michigan, and that's the reason that they were getting into foul trouble. I mean, you saw several times, several members of UConn's squad, whether it was Silas Demery getting into foul trouble early. He was on the bench a decent bit. Solo Ball also getting into foul trouble. UConn just didn't have any answers for Michigan's size. So we call sports copycat sports, right? You look at the team that won a national championship, and every other coach, every other program across the country is saying, how can we replicate that? How can we capture that same level of lightning in a bottle? I think that everyone is going to be looking around and saying, we need to find size in the transfer portal. We need to find size in high school recruits. That's something that I think college basketball has gotten away from to a certain extent. But if you look at the Final Four, Illinois, huge. Arizona, huge. Michigan, huge. It's just an overwhelming advantage. So I think that maybe we're seeing that trend in college basketball come back, that, when it comes down to it, whether it's skill, whether it's scoring, whether it's being well coached, all things that both of those teams had last night, Michigan just had size that UConn didn't.
Yeah, and I see the stat there. The first team ever to win a national championship while starting 5 transfers. I think sometimes what happens is that people that maybe didn't watch a lot of college basketball see that, and they think that what Michigan went and did is cherry picked the best of the best from 5 different programs and said, we'll take you and you and you and you and you, and we'll build a national championship. It was not that simple for Dusty.
You can do that. That's allowed.
You can, yes. Sure, 100%. And if Michigan did it and your team didn't, don't hate Michigan, hate your team. I just think that there is some credit here to Dusty May, who we've had on this show before, that did a really nice job with guys that weren't necessarily superstars. Yaxel was at a smaller level, but I think it discredits a little bit of what Michigan accomplished to look at it and just say, oh, fine, now you can just go to the transfer portal and buy your 5. Okay, if it's that simple, let's see if that works every single year. It won't. You mentioned the physicality, the size, the foul trouble for UConn. I think we also have to give Michigan credit for doing the simple thing, hitting your free throws. At one point, they'd made 20 consecutive free throws in this game. They finished the game 25 of 28 from the line. When you talk about championship moments, when they needed to just continually hit free throws, if they just missed a few of those in a game that was down to 4 points with 30 seconds to go, if they just missed a few of those free throws, the massive difference we would have seen in the second half and the way the entire thing felt. Because frankly, to your point, it always felt like Michigan, I think, to me, was sort of in control, but man, UConn was right there. And there was that championship DNA thing I kept thinking about. Well, this is the moment UConn knows how to make the play that Michigan doesn't. That wasn't true. Going to the stripe when you need to make your free throws to try and keep your lead in a national championship game, a pressure-filled moment for somebody. Michigan lived up to that every step of the way. Michigan played like they have a ton of national championship experience, which I think is a credit to these guys coming together. And, Elliot Cadeau said after the game that this was a team that never cared about stats. They just cared about each other. You can see that through the way that this night went. I mean, Yaxel Lendenborg, again, 13 points. Their superstar, 13 points, 4-13 shooting. Not really a presence on the glass at all. Injuries, a huge part of why, and they made a key point in the broadcast that at one point he had his head in his hands because he was so just dejected that his body wasn't cooperating in this game. It's still a next man up mentality, which is easier said than done, right? Like their ability to just find scoring. Elliot Cano having the night that he had in this national championship game and being as clutch from the free throw line as he was throughout the course of this. Like those are key moments to me, Caroline. Those are championship moments to me. And that's part of what we have to credit, not just Michigan for, not just their players for, but also Dusty May, who now adds a national championship to that resume that clearly puts him on that tier of upper echelon coaches in college basketball.
If he wasn't already, I mean, winning a national championship, I think definitely solidifies him in that rarefied air, at least of active head coaches right now. But when you get Florida Atlantic to the Final Four, that's when everyone starts to raise an eyebrow about what are you doing that you can elevate a team like that when there's teams like Duke, when there's teams like Kentucky, when there's teams like North Carolina, Texas, Florida, Arizona, all of these big time, big money programs, and a lot of them with rich histories in the sport of basketball. And here's Dusty May bringing rinky-dink gold Florida Atlantic to the Final Four, winning a national championship in the Big Ten for the first time in a quarter of a century. That, yeah, I think that if we're not already talking about Dusty May as one of the best coaches in college basketball, then what are we doing? I think the question here too is, and we always want to do this, we are always so greedy when we see a team win championships. It's like, okay, well, when are you going to win your next one? And it's like, okay, well, where do you rank at the best teams of all time? It's like winning a national championship just doesn't satisfy us for whatever reasons. But Fitz, I do think that's a fair question to ask. That if you just break down the numbers and the statistics, we saw the tweet up there that showed, all 5 players transferred, all 5 leading scorers were transfers. Also, all 5 leading scorers being over, I believe, 6'8". I don't have the statistic up in front of me. But if you just look at the numbers, you look at the data, you look at Michigan's efficiency, not just offensively, but defensively as well. Michigan ranks up there with some of the better teams of the 21st century. Like, I think it's fair to be having the conversation of, is this run from Michigan, is this Michigan team going through the gauntlet that they did in the Big Ten and in the path that they had in the NCAA tournament? Where does this Michigan team rank in some of the best teams in college basketball history? Now, it doesn't feel like this Michigan team has the same cultural impact or maybe impact on social media, big time flashy names that maybe we are accustomed to when we talk about the greatest teams of all time. The numbers point to, though, Fitz, that Michigan is one of those teams.
And that's interesting because couching greatest of all time is so difficult when you talk about cultural impact, particularly like the Fab Five that everybody knows from Michigan, the Chris Webber, Juwan Howard, that group. They were more culturally significant than they were significant on the court simply because they didn't win a championship. But ESPN has made 30 for 30s about them. They changed the way people dressed in basketball games, right? Like the style of shorts that people wore. Like they were culturally phenomenal at a level that an entire group of people, like it didn't matter where you lived in the country, you were impacted by them. They impacted the way you saw basketball, the way you watched basketball, the way you dressed when you played basketball. These are all impacts culturally. I don't know that you can put a value, enough of a value on that. And so it becomes difficult because you're right. The numbers do show greatness from this Michigan team. But also, I covered a UConn team a couple of years ago in beating Purdue that was historic through that entire championship run. Their NCAA tournament run was one of the most dominant we'd ever seen in history. How do we couch that? And I don't know, because Michigan certainly has had cultural phenomenons, but now they have a championship. And, even though I'm the old man in the room, I was a kid when they won in 1989. I don't pretend to have enough understanding of what that 1989 team was. I do know this. I grew up a UNLV basketball fan, as many people know. And the championship team that UNLV had was not as good as the team that they had the next year that went undefeated, but lost in the Final Four to Duke. So it is interesting that championships have to play a huge part of how we view value. I think probably because of the transfers and because of the Michigan situation, because modern college basketball is so different than basketball was a generation ago. I wonder if it's even possible to have that same level of resonance. I don't know, but time will tell. In the meantime, last night's championship wasn't the only massive story in college basketball yesterday. One of the biggest programs in the sport hired a coach that has everybody saying, We will break it down next. What does it mean for Michael Malone to be the new head coach of the Tar Heels?
Who are some of the other UFC combat sports golfers that we might not know about? Who's sneaky good?
You know what, man? I don't think there really is anybody else. Daniel Cormier is starting to play. He's absolutely
How's his game?
awful.
He's
no. Awful. He talks so much trash. He is so bad. But I tell you what, though, he is an athlete, and he's just like it. Golf's like anything. The more you do it, the better you get.
The Dallas Mavericks, are they still taking Cooper Flag, Corey?
He is legitimately, as a 6'8" wing who does everything at a high level, shows up every day, competes his ass off.
The way his handle has improved since high school to Duke to now suggests that this guy can be a MVP candidate, not just a multi-time All-Star as a role player, a high-end star role player, but a mega star.
Do you feel pressure that this is America's birthday, this is the White House, you have to represent?
Hell yeah. I do feel pressure. I feel pressure that, I got to go out there and represent for the United States, and I got to go out there and I feel like I'm going to be expected to go out there and win this fight. I'll probably be a favorite. There's pressure right there too. I put pressure on myself. I need to finish. It's been too long.
Johnson to the end zone, caught. Guess who? C.J. Jefferson.
And in talking to the coaches this week, they said that's your playmaker. That's the guy that Jerome Johnson has the most confidence in. And there you are on 4th and goal, and you throw it right at the goal line, right at the yellow line at the wall. Terrific throw. Nice catch.
Great execution there for New Mexico. They had to have a play.
Stop if you've heard this one before. UNC thinks way outside the box and hires a seasoned, experienced head coach from the pros to run their program. Michael Malone to North Carolina. Pete Thamel first to report it yesterday. He steps in, takes over. What do we think, Caroline?
So, look, I like the fact that they went outside of the family. I think that was necessary. I think at a certain point, you just have to start doing something different if the same thing that you've always been doing doesn't work anymore. So I like the fact that UNC looked outside of the North Carolina family. I like the fact that Michael Malone is a proven winner. Nobody can question or nobody should question Michael Malone's basketball acumen or basketball IQ. Everyone that has worked with Michael Malone has said he's a really smart basketball mind. That checks that box. He won a championship at the highest level in the sport. Of course, there is so much value to that. But he did it in the NBA. And to act like college basketball and the NBA is the same sport is incredibly naive. I question the translation from the NBA to the college level. And sure, college sports look more pro now than ever before. I will acknowledge that 100%. But the way that you deal with boosters, the way that you work with an athletic department, the way that you're a coach and also a general manager. I know that North Carolina and so many other big programs either have GMs or are going to hire GMs to kind of take that off of a head coach's plate. But still, when you're a head coach, you're still the GM. So that's going to be new for Michael Malone. That just the dynamic of college basketball, the style of college basketball, it's all different. Michael Malone has never been a head coach in college basketball, and now he's going under one of the biggest, if not the biggest, pressure cookers in college basketball. We've seen North Carolina and Bubba Cunningham do this before. Hired a name that has won a championship that doesn't have any experience in college, and they did that with Bill Belichick. How's that going? I'm not going to say that Michael Malone's going to be as big of a train wreck as Bill Belichick has been at North Carolina, but it does at least make me question with a guy who doesn't have any experience really as a head coach at this level. I mean, the last time he coached in college, it was 30 years ago. He was an assistant at a small school.
This is a desperate move by a program that got turned down by everybody. This is like you're sitting here and you can't pay your mortgage, and you know you can't pay your mortgage. So you go to the gas station and you buy a scratch-off lottery ticket. and you walk into the bank and you say, I don't have my mortgage, but I got this scratch off lottery ticket. I'm just going to slide it over to you and you just scratch it off. We'll see. Could be a big old win. That's what they're doing here. There is absolutely no proof of concept that Michael Malone has any idea how to run a college basketball program, to deal with college basketball in any way, shape, or form, to deal with donors, to deal with the Buddy Garrity's, as we always say, the massive money that comes in that is turning around and saying, hey, we want to make sure this guy gets paid and we want to make sure this guy gets played. He has no idea how to deal with those personalities. He has no idea what life was like in college basketball. This is where everybody says, well, yeah, but modern college basketball isn't that different than the NBA. Are we sure about that? Because in the NBA, you at least get multi-year, fully guaranteed contracts. So you know your roster year in and year out to a certain extent. In college basketball, every single year, you have to go in and re-recruit your guys. How is Michael Malone as a recruiter? We have no damn idea. This is one of the premier iconic brands in all of sports, admitting the most important thing. Their brand no longer has the cachet to get somebody that actually deserves that job. Their brand is no longer nationally prominent enough to get one of the top guys. So they looked around and they said, oh my God, we've asked everybody. Nobody wants it. We're screwed. This guy won some games with Jokic. All right. This guy won some games with the best player in the NBA at the time. This guy has an NBA championship. How does that translate? Unless I miss something and Jokic has eligibility left and he's going to come with Malone, this is a desperate hire that's going to result in everybody getting fired in a couple of years. There's just no proof of concept for me to have any belief this works.
I don't know if I can call it desperate. I'll call it experimental. But I don't think that North Carolina is in a position to be experimenting. You could experiment with Bill Belichick and North Carolina football because all things considered, especially compared to basketball, nobody really cares about North Carolina football. So if you experiment and it goes horrifically wrong, well, it's fine. Like it's not going to be your biggest ticket sport on campus. We're talking about North Carolina basketball. I wholeheartedly believe North Carolina basketball is one of the strongest brands in sports, period. Forget college sports, in sports, period. And North Carolina has had a long enough stretch of falling short of expectations ever since Hubert Davis got them to the national championship in his first year. It's been, falling short of expectations, not making the tournament, out in the round of 64, out in the round of 32, one Sweet 16. It's not good enough. So I didn't think that North Carolina was in a position to experiment. Now, the thing with experiments is it could go horrifically wrong, like Bill Belichick has, or you can look like a genius. But if I have to put my house on it today, I'm going to go ahead and say we won't be the ones looking stupid. That Bubba Cunningham isn't going to be the one looking like a genius. And it's for a lot of the reasons that you just listed. You have to recruit in college basketball. You have to be sitting in high schoolers' living rooms and trying to sell North Carolina to them when they have not just the Kentuckys and the Dukes, but every other program in college basketball offering them millions of dollars to come to their school. What makes you different? It's not just the brand of North Carolina that can carry North Carolina anymore. The brand still matters, but the gap is shrinking. What are you going to do to players in the transfer portal to lure them to your school? Are you going to be willing to get on your hands and knees to beg and grovel with a 19-year-old to stay in Chapel Hill when they've got offers from around the country? Are you ready to do that? Are you prepared to do that? Because that's what you have to do in college basketball right now. Now, I think it's fair to say, okay, well, if not Michael Malone, then who else? Nate Oates said no. Ben McCollum said no. Dusty May said no. Like, you're getting turned down a lot, and I do think at a certain extent, you have to stop picking up the phone and saying, hey, tell me no. I think that can be your approach at the beginning, but at a certain point, it's like, yeah, you can't be doing that anymore, or else your brand really starts to get tarnished. So it's fair to say, if not him, then who? I heard a lot of people say, well, North Carolina wasn't willing to wait on Billy Donovan. Billy Donovan said I wanted to wait for the bowl season to end. But my question is why? Like, why not wait for Billy Donovan, a guy who has experience in college basketball and has won back-to-back national championships? So why not wait for him? What's the rush? I understand the transfer portal is opening. I understand that you want to lock in recruits. I totally and completely understand that. But it was the difference between Michael Malone and Billy Donovan so small, was the margin so thin between the two that you had to hurry up and hire Michael Malone as opposed to waiting for Billy Donovan?
I feel like Billy Donovan at least has, even though it was a different version of college basketball, has such proof of concept of being able to build a program. And look, NIL didn't exist, but the Bagman certainly did. So, like, he understood what it was like to deal with all the people that were involved in this. We're not stupid. I want to pull, I'll see if the guys can pull one of the tweets they just had back up from the ACC network that Danny Green was quoted in. And Danny Green said, who wouldn't want to play for a coach like Malone? And like, what player wouldn't want to play for a coach that knows the NBA level and how to develop? And first and foremost, full disclosure, Danny and I have worked together, and I absolutely love the human being, Danny. I love Danny, and I think he's wrong. I think he's wrong here because I'm being asked to accept that logic sometimes and other times not, right? Like, that's the exact same thing people said about Belichick. Oh, my God, Belichick immediately. Who's not going to want to play for Belichick? Because if you play for Belichick, you get the opportunity to learn what it really takes to win at the highest level. It's going to make you a better football player. North Carolina literally tried that same sales pitch to a football season that went off the rails. And then if you say, okay, well, that's football, this is basketball. Every single week I listen to coaches, major college basketball coaches, sit in front of a microphone and say, it's not even about development anymore. Everybody just wants to know what they're going to get paid and how they get paid. So if every coach in the sport is using their microphone to tell me the kids don't care about development anymore, they just care about whether they're going to play, they just care about whether the offense is going to highlight them, and they just care about how much money they get paid. If that's what I'm being asked to accept by the biggest names in the sport constantly, then how can I turn around now, flip that and say, oh, but who's not going to want to play for Malone because he can develop you to get to the NBA? Like, we can't have it out of both sides of our mouths here. So if the talking heads and the people around the sport are constantly telling me that the only thing kids care about is getting paid, why am I going to believe that Michael Malone is the one that suddenly makes everybody say, aha, but not for that guy. I'll play for less for that guy because he can get me to the NBA. Like, I refuse to accept that there are two sides to this when I'm only being hammered one side constantly.
I do think there is value to that, though. If you are a 17, 18-year-old phenom whose number one prerogative is to play in the NBA, like, I do think that matters. That doesn't just go out the window because of NIL. But why should that matter to North Carolina fans? Because I've heard this so many times from Kentucky fans. Cal's sales pitch to the best talent in the country was, I'll get you to the NBA. You will be a top 5 pick in the NBA draft. You will be a millionaire because I can get you to the NBA. And that's great and all when you can attract the best talent in the country. But Kentucky fans cared about championships. Kentucky fans cared about winning SEC championships, NCAA tournament championships, getting to consistent Final Fours, consistently being one of the best teams in the country. That's great and all that you get players to the NBA, but what does that mean for me and my fandom? You know, I'm not a Bulls fan. I'm not a Sacramento Kings fan. I'm not a New Orleans Pelicans fan. I'm a Kentucky Wildcats fan. So what does that mean for me? So that's great and all that Michael Malone has that sales pitch of, oh, you want to get to the NBA? I've been there before. I won a championship there before. That's a great sales pitch. But what does that mean for North Carolina fans? If your number one calling card is NBA development and not championships, because that's the expectation. That's the magnifying glass that Michael Malone is walking into. It is championship, dare I say championships with an S, or bust.
Even Jokic stepping up to the podium and saying, oh, it's going to be great because he can teach X's and O's and he can teach kids how to play basketball, blah, blah, blah. Okay, follow-up question. Why is he no longer the head coach of the Denver Nuggets? At the end of the day, it's just all of this is – I realize that there's nuance to it, but it just – this feels like such a desperate – we need somebody. He's a name. He's been around practice. His daughter plays volleyball here. Let's bring in Michael Malone. That's fine. It's fine. And in 3 years, when they're bringing in somebody else, then we'll see if North Carolina can figure it out. The biggest thing that North Carolina is going to have to do is look in the mirror, in my opinion, over the course of the Michael Malone era and try and figure out why everybody turned them down and they ended up with the Michael Malone era. Because that's the real truth. No matter how this hire works out, even if this works out to be absolute grandy, like the best hire in history for North Carolina basketball, let's be honest, they got here because everybody else turned them down. And that's the problem North Carolina has to answer. We got plenty more to get to, plenty to say on this, but we got to get to the WNBA. Massive trade yesterday. Cass Negley going to join us next. We'll figure out what it means. Angel Reese headed to Atlanta.
Two in motion, quarterback drops back, looks, throws the ball wide open over the middle. Oh, what a hit and what an interception. Huge defensive play. Absolutely beast mode. Jaden Rowe able to get the pick, and we have our first turnover of the game.
He used his head. Well, a tip drill to his teammate off his head.
I was super proud of Gable's fight. I think that Gable really showed tonight that he is going to be great. There's several questions that we got answered. What is he going to do when he gets hit? That was the big one. Everybody's asking it. All the coaches are looking at it. Gable took a spinning heel kick to the jaw and went like this. Nothing. No, he didn't get out of the process. As a matter of fact, he went right back in that guy's face. So that answers a huge question. Also takes away another avenue to victory that all his future opponents will be looking at.
We're going to give you a name. You tell us whether it's a real college athlete or if our producers just made it up out of thin air. Okay, so collegian or concoction. The first one we'll give you is Fat Brooks. Now, for clarity, fat is P-H-A-T.
That is a concoction.
That's a collegian. He's a guard for Central Michigan.
Fat Brooks.
Fat Brooks, yes.
But you know what, Ariel, as well? I actually think this is a wonderful, wonderful thing for the UFC. Because if you've got the UFC heavyweight champion whose profile has already risen incredibly over the last week, and by the way, we will continue to drive his profile with our promotional machine. And I believe that when he fights again, he will be in a much better position commercially. He will be a much bigger star.
Angel Reese to Atlanta in a blockbuster trade. The Sky receives Atlanta's 2027 first-round pick, Atlanta's 2028 first-round pick. The Dream received Angel Reese and a second-round pick swap. One of the stars of the league gets traded. We welcome in now one of the hosts of Hoops 360. Cass Negley joins us. Thanks for being back on the show. Your initial reaction, Cass, when you saw the news, we're just trying to go out and have a day and get ready for a show, and all of a sudden, boom, we get hit with the blockbuster trade. What was your initial reaction?
My initial reaction was, I'm just trying to enjoy my coffee and get out of town. I was not that shocked that it happened in general. This relationship seemed to be kind of fracturing. Angel didn't seem like she was happy to be in Chicago with how they were moving forward. Seemed like Chicago and her teammates weren't happy with how she handled the end of last season. Now, that said, I was kind of surprised, and I think we were all maybe a little on our toes that this was the very first thing that happened. For us on the West Coast, it was maybe 6, 7 o'clock that the WNBA even announced that free agency, those 3 periods, would begin on Monday morning. So this was the very first thing that happened, and I think that shows to me that this has been in the works, talked about for a while now.
How would you grade this trade for both Chicago and Atlanta, considering how stacked next year's draft is going to be?
Yeah. Well, we can get into the sky of it. I think the Dream, though, it's a good move. I know there's a lot of talk of, well, Angel isn't really an outside shooter, and that's going to be something she needs to work on. But Carl Smesko does this a lot. He wants shooters. He develops them. You know, a lot of teams work on half-court shots at shoot-around. He does this crash-out drill where you're shooting 3-pointers from 5 different spots, and if you make them all, you in the bag, and if you miss one, you're out. So that's going to help develop her. I think also if the players who we believe to be staying in Atlanta stay in Atlanta, so Alisha Gray and Ryan Howard, it's an incredible move because Angel's going to be able to clean up the boards. They led the league in rebounding last year, kick out to shooters. Good move for them. Probably give it an A. The Sky side of it, I know that there are stacked drafts, but I think we're seeing again with shipping Angel out that they haven't handled those drafts well. She is only the latest superstar to, I know she didn't ask out, but to exit in some form. And this goes all the way back to Elena Deladon, Sylvia Fowles, Candace Parker left and quite famously said when she got to Las Vegas, it was the first time that she had her own locker room. Like, there is a history of Chicago not handling their stars well. And while I think they probably will bring in some talent and begin another rebuilding phase of their franchise, we've done this so many times with them before.
Educate me, Cass. I'll admit what I don't know and what I don't understand. We have the expansion draft coming. We saw Chicago make trades to give up draft picks to ensure that their roster isn't plucked at all, so that nothing was impacted in the expansion draft. And then we see the trade of Angel Reese. What is Chicago's long-term full roster plan at this point?
I wish I could tell you. I mean, they seem to be wanting to completely, redo their roster, and they should. They're going to have Camila Cardoso still on contract, and I don't know that Camila playing next to Angel always worked. So, maybe that's a pin in their pocket that this is going to work out. They have Haley Van Lith on contract, but otherwise, it is interesting to see what their plan is, because you have the collegiate draft coming up. They're going to have some draft picks. I don't know that there are any, high caliber talents that they're going to add to be the builder in terms of free agency, which is going to kick off in full force in a few days. They don't have a practice facility yet. It's not open. And so given the condensed window that we're going to see, I don't know how many free agents, like high caliber free agents, I should say, are going to want to go to Chicago. It's a great unknown right now what Chicago is doing, wants to do, will do moving forward.
I think who knows is the answer to literally any question about the Chicago Sky. It's like, oh, what is their plan? I don't know. Who knows? Great question. What about the Atlanta side of things? We know Angel Reese has a massive platform. She has a huge following, and she is not somebody to swallow her tongue. She was very outright and forthright about her, let's just say, concerns about the Chicago Sky organization last year. She was in the headlines for that. Why will that, or why could that be different in Atlanta?
Well, I mean, it's a better situation first and foremost. Her being drafted to Chicago was always kind of an eye raiser because they have had so many issues in the past. It just kind of felt like, are they going to get this right or not? They didn't surround her with a ton of players that were going to make her compete immediately. She will have that in Atlanta. There's some veteran leadership that will potentially be on that team, maybe in fuller force. It's just a better situation. Also, she's going to continuously get older. We all get older, as we were all talking about, and will, I think, mature and grow out of some of these situations that she found herself in. But I think the biggest thing is it is just a better situation in Atlanta. And out of that, I think we're also going to see that Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese rivalry actually be a WNBA rivalry because both teams will be competitive.
So stick with Angel for a second. I'm thinking about the brand of Angel Reese, because I've gone to a couple of Connecticut Sun games where Chicago was there, and it was 10-1. Angel jerseys 10-1 over everybody else. In fact, if you just go to a regular WNBA game and there's no rooting interest, you will see Angel Reese jerseys everywhere. What does her brand power mean for Atlanta as they look at sort of this acquisition?
This is kind of a soapbox issue for me when it comes to Atlanta. They have a 5,000 seat arena, and they outgrew that a while ago. Now they're one of the kind of independent franchises. They're not partners with an NBA team. They don't have co-NBA ownership. So it's a little different. And every time I talk to Atlanta personnel about this, I always hear, well, it's intimate, it's unique. And it is. I have seen games there. It is an experience. But in terms of Angel Reese's brand, like you said, like, Connecticut, I'm sure when you saw her, they were close to sellouts. Like, people want to see Angel Reese, and they need to figure out that stadium situation because announcing sellouts is not good at this point. If you look at Chicago's attendance over the past 3 years, it has grown every single year, and that is despite them getting worse in the standings. Now, they do move some games to State Farm Arena in Atlanta. They have some sort of relationship there. Some of the Caitlin Clark matchups have gone there. I think the home season opener against the Aces has gone there. I would like to see them do that more often, but also find a better home. Because the thing is, as you said, business-wise, financially, if people are going to come to see Angel Reese, you need to give them the opportunity to do that in droves, and you are going to make more money out of that. Business-wise, this is a huge move for Atlanta to have someone of Angel Reese's headline caliber on your team.
I think intimate is just French for too small. And everybody, all three of us, including your pup, we all agree. Atlanta was a playoff team last year, as he should. He's excited to have his mom home. Atlanta was a playoff team last year. Yeah. How does Angel Reese set them over the edge? Is Atlanta now closer to winning a championship today than they were 2 days ago?
Again, really hard to say right now. Technically, most of the league, almost all of the league is free agents, and we don't know how that's going to go down. I think that they are absolutely contenders. They were contenders last year. They just ran into a really spirited Indiana Fever team in that first round. I could see them going to the finals. I think they had all of the pieces. Alicia Gray and Ryan Howard will be huge for them. We'll see what they do about Brianna Jones and Brittany Griner. Maybe they add even more shooting. It's also going to be the second year of Carl Smesko as the head, and I think that's huge too. You have some consistency through that. But man, this week is just a lot of maybes and I don't knows.
June 4th, you mentioned it earlier. Dream at Fever, June 4th. Does the league blow that up into like the massive game of the year, of the century, of the millennium?
They should. They would be smart to. I mean, I think it'll be a good game. Like I said, we're finally going to see an actual rivalry between the fandoms of these two players because the two teams are actually good. And we just talked about how they met in the first round. It'll be a rematch of that, which was already kind of spicy. I don't think a lot of people had the Fever to win in 3. I have it circled on my calendar at the very least.
Yeah, it's going to be an absolute. I mean, the calendar as a whole, the matchups that we're getting, the superstar matchups, whether it's star on star or team on team, are an absolute blast this year in the WNBA. What blockbuster, crazy, wild move, similar to an Angel Reese trade, could we see coming down the pipe before the draft next week?
It's a good question. I think one of the things to look at, that won't like necessarily be a trade. When we talked to Sue Bird at Team USA training camp, she's the general manager. She's also part of the ownership for the Storm. One of the things she kind of brought up in terms of the next 2 weeks is, are we going to see players maybe sign 1-year contracts versus longer contracts? Because it's such a small window and maybe they're not sure if they want to leave their team and try something else, or they're maybe going to go take a flyer on Toronto for the year and see how it goes. And then we do kind of all of this again next year. I think how things play out in terms of who is getting super maxes, what does the market look like for players that are making less than that? Are these cores going to stay together? Have players already had conversations, which it seems like maybe we saw with Chicago and Atlanta, about where they want to go? I think it could be a boring free agency series, or it could be an incredibly exciting one. And I think the fact that it overlaps with the draft is also something to pay attention to. I wish I could answer that question better for you, Caroline.
All right, so I'll ask you an equally impossible question because we have no idea who's playing where.
Oh, no.
Based on just the knowledge you have of the organizations, the way they're run, and sort of just who you trust, when all the dust is settled and we go into the WNBA season, who's going to be the favorite?
I think it has to be the Aces. They have to figure out, obviously they're talking about paying Asia the Supermax, but what do those other contracts look like? I think Becky Hammond showed us all last year that you do not count against her no matter who's on her team. Aces are number 1. The Liberty, we already are hearing that they're keeping their core together. They have a first-year head coach, but still the favorite given all of that talent. And absolutely the Indiana Fever. I mean, Caitlin Clark coming back healthy. We don't know if Kelsey Mitchell will re-sign, but she will have Aaliyah Boston. There are players who are going to want to play around her. They almost made it to the finals last year without Caitlin. Imagine her back in the fold. And then since we're talking about them, I do think the Dream, at least with the roster that we think that they're going to have, should be competing for one of those top 4 spots too.
Going to be a wild couple of weeks for the WCast. Try and get some rest, my friend. We appreciate you hanging out with us early this morning. One thing I know, the minute you try to rest, there'll be breaking news. That's what we can be sure of. Follow her on social
Don't
media.
even put that in the universe.
Yeah. I'm just picking out truth.
It's true.
I appreciate you.
It's true.
Oh,
Thanks,
Caroline
guys.
doesn't care. Caroline's about to get married and go on break. She doesn't care.
I know. She's leaving us.
I know. Like,
I'm
I guess we should say
sorry.
congratulations, or I'm fine.
Congratulations, Caroline.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
there
you.
you go. Cass, we appreciate you. Thanks for hanging out with us. All right, coming up next, plenty
Thank
more
you,
to
Cass.
get to. Can LeBron pull off legendary heroics one more time? We'll tell you.
What do you think was kind of misunderstood about George Pickens prior to him arriving in Dallas?
I don't know. It was so many things that I feel like that was misunderstood. They feel like his attitude was off. And I mean, he come in the league at 19 years old. What do you expect out of a guy and you want him to be your receiver one?
Right.
I feel like that's kind of crazy. But keeping him within the guidelines, letting him be himself at the same time, I feel like was probably the best thing for him. And I knew that it was gonna have him comfortable here in Dallas.
What was your impression of him? Do you feel like you have a friendship with Giannis now?
I feel like he was just my friend. Like, I didn't even see him as just a basketball player, Giannis Antetokounmpo. I was just like that's just my guy. Cause we were just chilling. Like, he took me to his home. He took me to his first we did his first dunk in his neighborhood. So like, he was just showing me around, and I think we still check up on each other. I just need to go to one of his games, which I promised him.
Sending everybody in motion. He waits, pulls it, throws it, big completion. Can they get on the board? And he is in. That's a touchdown for CJ Wyndham. 2 touchdowns last week. Now he gets his first touchdown of this game.
All right, this is a spectacular play by Harper. I mean, because this is a zone read, and it's really an RPO. Harper sees it and then is able to hit Wyndham coming across the field in a matter of milliseconds there.
Who is your first player to team fit that you absolutely love?
Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end of Oregon, to the Chiefs. And this was basically a post-combine reaction, basically Vernon Davis style numbers athletically. And so I think it was validating to see kind of him put those numbers up athletically, speed, explosion, change of direction. He feels like a player that is not going to drop very far in this draft, especially in a draft where there aren't a ton of blue chip players.
How it started for LeBron, how it's going now for LeBron. That's LeBron with a bunch of guys. You're like, trying to make the playoffs and make something happen. Obviously, they'll make the playoffs, but try to make some noise with the Lakers. Things have really gone off the rails for LA, who had a great March, but April has been horrific as they lose Austin Reeves, and we don't know when Luka Doncic is going to be back. And now it feels like single-handedly LeBron has to be He-Man mixed in with Superman, mixed in with Batman all at once, and try and will his team, the Lakers, to an actual playoff victory. What would it mean, Caroline, to you, if LeBron's actually able to get them through a first round? Would this be the single greatest playoff success that he's had?
Single greatest. I'll pump the brakes on that a little bit. Like, we're talking about LeBron James here. Like, we're talking about championships here.
Yeah, but
I think most impressive is winning a championship with a bunch of scrubs and scarbinis around him. But with all of that being said, obviously championships, I believe, are going to supersede really anything else. It's a championship. Maybe not the bubble championship. I take that back. Maybe the bubble championship's a little bit lower on the list. But I think that this should be higher than maybe a lot of people would give him credit for. If LeBron at age 41 is able to win a playoff series without Luka Doncic, without Austin Reeves, if he's able to give Luka Doncic an opportunity to get over the hamstring, to give him some time and an opportunity to come back for the second round of the postseason, I mean, that is, outside of championships, it would have to be up there on LeBron's very lengthy list of accomplishments. If LeBron is able, at 41 years old, to carry a team throughout the postseason, especially in this year's Western Conference, I mean, I don't know if I can say exactly where it would land on LeBron's list of accomplishments, but I think it would have to be high. I think that we would have to give credit to LeBron. I think more credit than I would anticipate a lot of people would. I think a lot of times we don't give LeBron credit for a lot of things that he does because it's LeBron and we just expect greatness from LeBron. But I think that we would have to give proper context to what this would mean. Single-handedly carrying a team at 41, unheard of.
That's where I think the way you said that, like, let's eliminate championships from this conversation because that hits at a much different level. The ability at his age to actually win a playoff series with basically nothing around him would be one of the most impressive things LeBron has done in his incredible career outside of championships. And I think at some point we have to look at it and just accept that superhuman is the norm that we accept for LeBron. Think about this. We're asking if he can single-handedly take the Lakers to a first-round playoff victory while also talking about whether or not he's even going to come back to play for another year because he's so damn old, right? Like, if he does come back to play for another year, where does he want to play? Like, there's a part of us that are putting one foot in the grave for LeBron's career, sending him out to pasture, and then there's another part of us that's asking LeBron to literally do what feels like the impossible. And I think part of the reason we want this hope, part of the reason we're having this conversation is that it is LeBron. And LeBron has played so well, so often throughout the course of this season. And the mindset, we love the Disney storybook ending. And the Disney storybook ending says, man, if he could just get them through a first round series, then suddenly Luka and Austin come back. And what if we get this fully stacked version of the Lakers that then goes on a run? And we want to find these really great storylines because it's LeBron and because, frankly, we work in the storyline business as much as we work in the sports business. I just don't think any of that's going to happen. That's the hard part, is that I think there is a limit to what should be asked of LeBron or what can be asked of LeBron at this point. And yeah, certainly on a given night, can LeBron kick your ass? Yes. But part of what has made this season magical, I think, is that LeBron has accepted a different role. He hasn't tried to be everything to the team every single night. He's truly accepted that at this stage in his career, things are a little different, right? So he gets to be the single greatest Robin we've ever seen and doesn't have to be Batman every night. If he goes into a playoff series and has to be Batman, I don't think the Lakers are going to win. So if they do win, yes, it's incredibly impressive. But also, if I grow 7 inches over the course of the night and can suddenly dunk on a rim effortlessly, that's about as likely. I just don't think the Lakers are going to be able to do this. They're too injured. It's not a statement about LeBron. It's a statement about team basketball. And in a grind of a series, LeBron alone cannot win that series to me.
It's fair to say, because I have said on record several times, and I'll double down, that I think the Lakers have a very specific and important formula to winning games, and especially in the postseason, and that is their big three all doing big three things. It's Luka, it's Austin Reeves, and it's LeBron all firing on all cylinders, because the Lakers defense is their offense, and they're going to have to score deep into the 120, 130s in order to win basketball games. Can they do that without Luka and Austin Reeves? No, they cannot. They absolutely cannot. Now, if there is a team, though, that the Lakers, I think, want to get, if there is a team that's in at least the realm of possibility for the Lakers to get in the first round of the playoffs that I think they can beat with just LeBron, I think it's Houston. Like, Houston has been a choke job team so much, really all season, but really over the last couple of months and the last couple of weeks especially. I don't trust Houston. Now, I don't really trust the Lakers with just LeBron having to be Superman, but I don't trust Houston. If there is a team, it is Houston, Fitzy, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, you're 1,000% right about that. Houston sucks. Right. Let me qualify that. Houston sucks in the way that we say that about teams that aren't really particularly good. Like, we need a new word in the English language that isn't just like you're trash. We need a word for like, okay, I get it, you're good, but you're not like actually good. So you're just sort of good to
they're
this
not a championship
landscape of good.
Like, they're not a scary team.
Houston, if the Lakers and LeBron beat Houston, the conversation, unfortunately, won't be, oh my God, I can't believe what the Lakers just did. The conversation will be, the Rockets suck, they were never good enough, and KD's washed. Like, that's what we'll do. We'll turn it into a negative about Houston instead of a positive about the Lakers if they win that series.
You think?
Now, you're right. Yeah, 100%. Like, we're already doing it. Like, we're already finding reasons to doubt the Rockets. Yeah, well, 100%. You want to tell me, as much as people are just waiting to climb the mountain of I hate KD, and that's not, like, look, I don't believe in asterisks. I love that he won rings. Again, I'm not anti-KD. I think the anti-KD slander is just way overrated. I just think that, as I've said on this show, KD doesn't necessarily, for me, move the needle anymore. But yeah, if you have LeBron taking down KD a 99 out of 100 times, the conversation won't be about LeBron in that situation. It will be about KD not being the type of guy that you can win with anymore. KD never was the type of guy you could win with by himself. KD's washed. KD's no good. KD's going to go to his burners. Like, it will be weeks of Kevin Durant conversation and just a little bit of LeBron combo.
Oh, I think, you talk about the mountain of I hate KD. I think the bigger mountain, the taller mountain, is the I love LeBron mountain and the I love the Lakers mountain. And I do think that there is a special tradition in the NBA of just dunking, literally, pun intended, on KD. That people love to hate KD. People love to make fun of KD. And for the large part, like, KD does it to himself, especially on the internet. But I think if LeBron is able to do it, especially without Luka, especially without Austin Reeves, like if the Lakers have the big three healthy and they beat the Rockets, then yeah, I think that you're right. The conversation is about KD because the Lakers would be doing what they should be doing, at least at full strength. But if LeBron does it single-handedly, I do think the story is more about LeBron than it is about the Rockets. I think the Lakers will always be the story over any other team in the NBA, but especially the Houston Rockets.
Yeah, maybe I'm underselling the way that we'll treat it. I feel like, as we've talked about before on this show, literally nothing in the world can happen that will change anybody's mind about LeBron. Like, and I don't understand why. I don't understand how. I don't understand whatever fixes that. But the narratives are the narratives. So First Take is going to run with whatever First Take wants to say about LeBron because they know at the end of the day, people will react to it. But realistically, LeBron could go out and win 3 championships in a row at this stage in his career. And the people that don't think he's the GOAT are still not going to think he's the GOAT. And LeBron could go out and absolutely get hammered in the first round, swept. And the people that think that he's people that think he's the best of all time are still going to look at that and say, it doesn't matter. Look at his age, right? Like, nothing's going to change anybody's mind on LeBron. And that's, I think, the maddening part of covering somebody that the real nuance is one of the greatest players of all time. And as you and I have said before,
yes,
we don't really care if he's your GOAT. That's the hardest part. We do have some news in the NBA. Want to make sure we get everybody caught up on. We got an injury, speaking of teams that actually matter in the Western Conference action right now. San Antonio last night suffered a scare, a quickie on Victor Wembanyama, leaving the Spurs Sixers at halftime. He did have a rib contusion, cut his evening short. Not short enough to count against him for 65 game purpose, rule purpose. He did get 20 minutes in, so we got enough in to count, but he is still 1 game short of 65. So right now, rib contusion, only a few games left. We have no idea if he's going to be able to play. We're awaiting test results, but as it stands right now, quickly, Caroline, he would need to get 1 more game in with at least 20 minutes to be able to qualify for any postseason honors.
There's 2 sides of this. One side is the 65 game threshold. If Wemby doesn't reach that because this left rib contusion leaves him sidelined until the postseason, that's everything wrong with the rule. Because if Victor Wembanyama is not in consideration for MVP or for Defensive Player of the Year, we are completely missing context from this season. Victor Wembanyama is the best defensive player in the NBA and one of the best players, period. The 65 game rule is wrong and it's broken if that leaves Wemby out of contention for those awards. The second part of this is the San Antonio angle. Can San Antonio make a run in the postseason, get to the NBA Finals, and win a championship without Victor Wembanyama? The answer is no. I think this Spurs team can win games, surely, without Wemby. This team is so deep, they can win in so many different types of ways. They can't do it without Victor Wembanyama. We don't know exactly how long he will be out, but at least that should be a concern for Spurs fans today.
It's going to be an interesting nugget to see how the Spurs balance what they need versus what Wemby needs over the course of the next several days. Updates to come as we get them. We will get them to you. In the meantime, coming up next, it's the offseason, but there's no such thing as the offseason in the NFL because every day there's drama, including Dexter Lawrence drama. Mike Silver joins the show. Next, we'll get his thoughts.
Who are some of the other UFC combat sports golfers that we might not know about? Who's sneaky good?
You know what, man? I don't think there really is anybody else. Daniel Cormier is starting to play. He's absolutely
How's his game?
awful.
He's
awful. He talks so much trash. He is so bad. But I tell you what, though, he is an athlete, and he's just like in golf's like anything. The more you do it, the better you get.
The Dallas Mavericks, are they still taking Cooper Flagg, Corey?
He is legitimately, as a 6'8" wing who does everything at a high level, shows up every day, competes his ass off.
The way his handle has improved since high school to Duke to now suggests that this guy can be a MVP candidate, not just a multi-time all-star as a role player, a high-end star role player, but a mega star.
Do you feel pressure that this is America's birthday, this is the White House, you have to represent?
Hell yeah. I do feel pressure. I feel pressure that, I got to go out there and represent for the United States, and I got to go out there and I feel like I'm going to be expected to go out there and win this fight. I'll probably be a favorite. There's pressure right there too. I put pressure on myself. I need to finish. It's been too long.
Johnson to the end zone, caught. Guess who? C.J. Jefferson.
And in talking to the coaches this week, they said that's your playmaker. That's the guy that Jerome Johnson has the most confidence in. And there you are on 4th and goal, and you throw it right at the goal line, right at the yellow line at the wall. Terrific throw. Nice catch.
Great execution there for New Mexico. They had to have a play.
Giants superstar Dexter Lawrence has requested a trade. Sources tell The Athletic the three-time Pro Bowler will not attend the team's off-season workouts. All sorts of reporting on this yesterday. We're going to get some insight on it now from one of the best in the business, senior NFL writer for The Athletic, Mike Silver. Mike, appreciate your time, man. Let's dive right in. Dexter Lawrence, how does this all – we're used to seeing big-time players say, I want to be traded just because they want more money. So how do we get to a final resolution here?
Yeah, well, this is the opposite of what teams do all the time, right? We don't think you're that value. We're going to cut your money or cut you. Sometimes players do it in the middle of contracts too. I think this is something where they can throw money at the problem. They did adjust his deal last year. He has 2 years left, so not an amazing amount of leverage, but my sources tell me they're open to doing something in the near future to try to get his contract more in line with where the market is. Obviously the team and the player may have different ideas of what that number is, but this is just your standard run-of-the-mill disagreement over value in the NFL. And I think people freak out more when players do it, but teams do it all the time, and here we are.
So is what you're saying is that this is as simple as Dexter Lawrence is kind of playing hardball and he'll be in a Giants uniform, next season? Or could we see Dexter Lawrence actually getting dealt?
I think it all depends on the number and how dug in he is. If they can't get to a number with him, before the start of the season or before whatever the tipping point is, then you may look at trade scenarios. And obviously the draft is, kind of a hallmark where if they feel like it's at a terrible place, he's dug in and they're getting incredible offers, maybe you look at it. I would guess that they will find a way to solve this on both sides. He's obviously a really important player, and they are certainly, trying to go hard into the Harbaugh era with enthusiasm and excitement, and losing one of your best players doesn't necessarily, promote that.
You mentioned the draft, Mike. It's become such a tentpole event where we love chaos, right? So with all the speculation out there, it feels like it's hard to find great trades. Do you think that we should be looking at any blockbuster type trade possibilities going into this year's draft?
I mean, I think you always look because, teams get excited so much in their pre-draft process. And in those moments, they go, wow, we could get another pick. This is amazing. The caveat would be a lot of teams view the 2027 draft as stronger than the 2026 draft. So that scramble to get extra picks this year may not be what it is normally, because teams are gearing up toward 2027, and specifically teams that are looking for quarterbacks where, and you know how that is. People are always freaking out about how great the next quarterback class is, not this one. That may be true in this case, but a lot of quarterbacks who are intriguing in 2027. So sure, we may see some trades. I don't think blockbusters are likely, but we may see some players who, aren't super happy with their contract situation or maybe later in their careers get dangled at least on draft day.
Meg, we've seen AJ Brown get traded on draft night before. There's been a lot of rumblings if AJ Brown isn't happy in Philadelphia. It feels like the vibes are off in Philadelphia. We heard the Jalen Hurts story come out, he and Nick Sirianni's relationship. Could we see AJ Brown traded? Where makes sense, and what's a trade package that makes sense in your opinion?
I think we're going to have to wait just a little bit longer than the draft, but there is a day looming, the first day of June, when for cap purposes, it would be better for the Eagles to wait to trade him. And again, those 2027 picks, I believe Howie Roseman would value a 2027 first rounder, for example, over an extra one this year. So I don't think it's going to happen during the draft, but I do believe that most likely AJ Brown will be in a different uniform. We know the Patriots and Rams were heavy in those talks. I would say that him going north to reunite with Mike Vrabel would be a much more likely outcome. And I think a first round pick in 2027 sounds close to what the value is to me.
Stick with the Patriots for a second, Mike, because coming off the Super Bowl, they've been kind of quiet this offseason. How would you assess what they've done so far?
I mean, I think they've earned the right to not be loud when they did a bunch of things last offseason where we all said, wow, they brought in some veterans. That could maybe help them. They could probably, maybe get to 500 if Mike Vrabel does an incredible coaching job and they hit on some of these young guys and Drake May progresses. Next thing we know, they are in the Super Bowl as the number 2 seed in the AFC. What an incredible coaching job, and what a testament to organizational rebuild. We haven't seen much like it in recent years. So obviously the Super Bowl was a huge bummer for them. And they, in the NFL, you can never be content. But I do feel like organizationally, they've earned the right to have us trust them. And, they will be very, very, scrutinized based on what happens at the draft. We won't know right away. We saw the offensive line struggle in the Super Bowl. Drake May, they're hoping will continue to develop. But I think, I just hinted at it in the previous answer. I think they're not done in terms of trying to make splashy acquisitions this offseason.
Let's go from one team that was just in the Super Bowl to another team that feels very far from one, and that is the New York Jets. In most drafts, if you're drafting at number 2 overall, you're normally within swinging distance to draft a quarterback. This year's draft is different. What do you think the Jets do at number 2 overall?
Well, I think they signaled to all of us what they're thinking by going out and getting Geno Smith, who, you could say he's, a bridge quarterback, but what a nice story, by the way. Geno Smith returning to the Jets after all these years. That's someone that they believe, gets them a, top half quarterback, for the 2026 season. How he'll do with limited resources around him is another story. I think we saw that in Vegas last year, and it wasn't pretty, but certainly, something they feel can get them to a functional level. And we did talk about that 2027 draft when there should be more quarterbacks coming out. Arch Manning obviously has always been the marquee name because of his family, but a lot of names out there that, we'll see how the season progresses. Maybe Ty Simpson will entice them this year early in that second round if he's there, and maybe they'll go that route. But seems to me that by making the Geno Smith trade, they're trying to buy themselves an extra year. And this is a coach, Aaron Glenn, who likely needs to show something this year, or he may be the latest to get ground up in the Woody Johnson meat grinder. And this starts from the top. I think we all know that. And we keep hearing that Woody Johnson's different now. They're going to get it right. They're going to do it this way. You hear that Aaron Glenn was hot and heavy for Wink Martindale, who's an accomplished defensive coordinator who would have given him some juice. Then all of a sudden, in the middle of the search, he kind of started stammering in those interviews with Wink, like, well, that seemed to have Woody's fingerprints all over it. So it's tough, Jets fans. I'm a Cal fan. I feel you. It's tough. As a Cal alum, I understand what it's like year after year to feel helpless, but a fan can dream.
I mean, you're a Cal fan, Mike. I'm a Raiders fan. It's never easy for me, Mike. You know this.
Yeah,
all right, so
that's tough.
I know.
That's tough.
It's never easy. Simple question, complicated answer. We're going to presume Fernando's the first overall pick here. Somebody you know from time watching at Cal. Are the Raiders better today than they were a year ago? Sorry. That is too soon.
Yeah, no. Listen, are the Raiders better today than they were? Yes, seemingly they are better. And that wasn't hard, as you know. That was really, really rough last year. And, the premise, Tom Brady was not high on Sam Darnold. They thought, let's trade a 3 instead of signing Sam Darnold and then pay Geno Smith more than we would have paid Sam Darnold with no weapons around him. And then in the middle of the season, let's trade by far our most productive offensive weapon, Jacoby Myers, to the Jaguars. It's been rough. But, I think the Raiders, the problem is you get mixed messaging as a Raider fan, and even in our business. Mark Davis has pretty much proclaimed for a year, hey, I got Tom Brady. He's going to be the guy. He's going to fix everything. And Tom Brady's kind of in the shadows going, I'm not really. I'm just kind of there for advice, man. I don't know. And so, you don't know if Tom Brady's all in. You don't really know how big a role he's playing in these decisions. You've got an inexperienced GM in John Spytek, who's certainly doing his best. Now you have a new coach in Clint Kubiak, and you have an organization that, for all the marquee value of the Raiders, has been just miserable this century, or in the 21st century. And I don't want to, torture you on the air, but 2 playoff appearances since that Super Bowl defeat in the 2002 season, no playoff victories. It's been really rough. I wrote about Max Crosby before the ill-fated trade to the Ravens and his frustrations, and how Alex Guerrero, who's a Tom Brady confidant, who kind of walks around that building like he has an incredible amount of power and presents himself that way, and Max Crosby did not have a good relationship, and how that was a driving force in Max wanting to get out. Then they make the trade, and Raider fans get excited about the draft picks. Then it falls through, and they're like, we wanted Max the whole time anyway. We don't care. Certainly, that did not help Max Crosby's future trade value. The assessment by Ravens doctors, and apparently by the Cowboys doctor, that he has some knee issues that could plague him in the near future. So there are varying opinions on that. But if you're the Raiders, you still have Max Crosby. You went out and tore it up in free agency with Tyler Lindenbaum. You're going to get Mendoza. Now you have Kirk Cousins as a bridge quarterback who has familiarity. So I think they are a lot better than last year on paper. They still play in a division with the Broncos, who were the #1 seed last year and have Sean Payton. You've got Patrick Mahomes coming back with Andy Reid, and you've got Jim Harbaugh, now Mike McDaniel, and Justin Herbert. It's a gauntlet on paper, but I do think they're building towards something a little bit better.
It is crazy for a trade that went so horrifically wrong, Mike. I think both teams ended up smelling like a rose. The Ravens are better with 2 first-round picks in Trey Hendrickson. The Raiders are better with Max Crosby. It is crazy how everything just ended up working out, even if it was messy along the way. You mentioned how you're a Cal fan. Let's touch on a name and a quarterback that you know very, very well, and Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers and where his landing spot will be is becoming my favorite offseason tradition. Is it Pittsburgh or retirement? Is it that simple?
Yeah, I do think it's that simple. There was a report about the Broncos poking around. I don't believe that there's any credence to that scenario happening. But, this is kind of surprising to me. I covered that playoff game in Pittsburgh where they got just steamrolled by the Texans defense. He looked tired to me, and let's face it, he's at an age where almost everybody else would obviously retire, Brady being the outlier. But to me, it looked like, look, he had come back, he had proven he could still play at a higher level than he did during that Jets tenure, that injury-marred Jets tenure. He had gotten to the playoffs. He'd kind of ended on a higher note, and it seemed like a time where he would be exiting. Enter Mike McCarthy. And look, Aaron and Mike McCarthy, I once wrote a big feature for NFL.com after my Yahoo days. And I kind of made the Spinal Tap analogy, the famous scene where David St. Hubbins and Nigel Tufnell are screaming at each other, for you Spinal Tap fans, and looking on, another band member says, "We have two visionaries, not always tranquil between the two, but two visionaries." And they obviously made a lot of beautiful music together in Green Bay. I think time, has kind of made them feel like, hey, that was a pretty good thing. We've been through a lot. And so Mike McCarthy and Aaron Rodgers have been talking about this. I think the Steelers organizationally are reasonably upbeat about the possibility of Aaron coming back and playing another season. You heard Art Rooney, the owner, tell local media at the owner meetings, we think he's going to tell us before the draft, which would be obviously different from last year and would help the Steelers. But they still don't really have a great option for 2026 if Aaron says no, or if he says, you know what, I need a few more months. So cautious optimism in the building that Aaron Rodgers will come back. I'd love to see it. It's been, an amazing ride covering him all these years. And maybe Mike McCarthy and Aaron Rodgers have one more hit single together.
I love all the Spinal Tap talk. Although, hot take, Waiting for Guffman, a better Christopher Guest movie. I'm just throwing out my Christopher Guest takes at this point, Mike.
No.
No?
Best in show, I think, is in the conversation, but I'm going Spinal Tap.
Yeah, Best in Show is definitely in the combo. You tweeted out congrats to the city of Buffalo for the Sabres ending their playoff drought. Okay, that had us thinking about something we talked about yesterday on the show. When you look at the NFL landscape, which fan base is the Sabres fan base? Which fan base has had it the toughest in the NFL?
Man, we've touched on two of them, have we not? Raiders, it's been a rough 24 years at least. Jets, man, I'm thinking of you Jets fans. It is not easy. And then you have the Browns, who kind of have these little blips where we got Baker Mayfield and we beat the Steelers in the playoffs, and it's man. And then every time, they get a little rush of excitement, it gets rough. I think this, I might say Browns, and this is why. Imagine a franchise that makes in what's viewed as a desperation move, one of the worst trades in sports history, right? The Deshaun Watson trade has not aged well. It was guaranteed money. It was all the draft capital. By the way, Deshaun Watson likely to be the Browns starter coming out of training camp, so maybe this will change. But a cataclysmic deal for Deshaun Watson that they're still dealing with. And then they proposed a rule change, which eventually got tabled at the owners' meetings. But they are the ones to propose the rule change, saying we need to be able, as a league, to trade even further into the future, not just 3 years into the future on draft picks, 5 years into the future. So essentially, let us be the ones to help make a rule to let an organization like us make an even more abominable trade than the one we made for Deshaun Watson. Browns fans, it is not easy.
This is the great Mike Silver. Follow him on Twitter, X at Mike Silver. Read him on The Athletic. Mike, next year's Super Bowl, you, me, God Loves a Terrier karaoke bar. There we go. It's a Best in Show reference, guys. Just go check it out. Mike, we appreciate your time, brother. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Sounds beautiful. Thanks, you guys.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks so much, Mike. Great stuff from him. All right, coming up, we'll get back to the women's basketball action. Who improved their W draft stock the most? We'll answer that question.
Two in motion, quarterback drops back, looks, throws the ball wide open over the middle. Oh, what a hit and what an interception. Huge defensive play. Absolutely beast mode. Jaden Rowe able to get the pick, and we have our first turnover of the game.
He used his head. Well, a tip drill to his teammate off his head.
I was super proud of Gable's fight. I think that Gable really showed tonight that he is going to be great. There's several questions that we got answered. What is he going to do when he gets hit? That was the big one. Everybody's asking it. All the coaches are looking at it. Gable took a spinning heel kick to the jaw and went like this. Nothing. No, he didn't get out of the process. As a matter of fact, he went right back in that guy's face. So that answers a huge question. Also takes away another avenue to victory that all his future opponents will be looking at.
We're going to give you a name. You tell us whether it's a real college athlete or if our producers just made it up out of thin air. Okay, so collegian or concoction. The first one we'll give you is Fat Brooks. Now, for clarity, fat is P-H-A-T.
That is a concoction.
That's a collegian. He's a guard for Central Michigan.
Fat Brooks.
Fat Brooks, yes.
But you know what, Ariel, as well? I actually think this is a wonderful, wonderful thing for the UFC. Because if you've got the UFC heavyweight champion whose profile has already risen incredibly over the last week, and by the way, we will continue to drive his profile with our promotional machine. And I believe that when he fights again, he will be in a much better position commercially. He will be a much bigger star.
What you see in front of you is the updated WNBA mock draft from Tankathon with the second round added, as we are only about a week away, inside of a week, I should say, before the WNBA draft. That's right, expansion, all of this has to happen incredibly quickly because of the collective bargaining agreement finally being signed as we get ready for the season. So, Caroline, let's take a look at it. Whose March Madness run helped improve their W draft stock the most to you?
I think it's Lauren Betts. And look, Lauren Betts, even going into the tournament, Lauren Betts going into the season was viewed as a potential #1 overall pick. So it's not like Lauren Betts went from this obscure name that nobody was ever talking about to all of a sudden talked about in the #1 overall contention. I want to acknowledge that. But I think what Lauren Betts showed on their run to a national championship is a certain level of leadership, a certain level of maturity, and a certain level of she can take the game over in several different ways. I mean, the way that she can score, the way that she can guard the basket, the way that she is such a presence in the paint. She has something that you can't coach. You can't coach 6'7". So like, that's been there, right? There is a certain element of Lauren Betts that's always been made her such an intriguing draft prospect. But I think that was just this certain level, a next level that was unlocked from Lauren Betts. Whether it was her leadership, whether it was the ability to get smacked in the mouth and then to continue to bear down and keep going. I questioned that about this entire UCLA team and about Lauren Betts, just because they hadn't, at least it hadn't felt like they'd been overly tested throughout this past season. They lost one game, and that was to Texas in the month of November. Then throughout conference play, it just didn't feel like UCLA was battle tested, to at least not enough to really, wear the weathering of the NCAA tournament. Then against Duke got out to an early lead. Duke was leading at halftime, and then we saw this different level of UCLA and of Lauren Betts get unlocked. I also think it would be naive to say that playing your best basketball on the biggest stages against the best teams in the country doesn't matter. Of course it does. It absolutely matters that Lauren Betts led her team against Texas, one of the best teams in the country. They out-Texased Texas, out-defensed one of the best defensive teams in the country in Texas, and then beat and whooped South Carolina the way that they did. I think that Lauren Betts is viewed as not just a prospect and a player, but a legitimate leader a little bit differently, at least I do, coming out of the NCAA tournament, Fitzy.
Yeah, I think you're right. It had to change a little bit of the way that we view, not that she needed to change. Let's say it had to enhance a little bit of the way that we view her because she played so well and was so key and was just such a physical presence. Like that's the thing too, that when you see that level of dominance and you ask yourself, what's going to translate over to the next level? Well, certain things like size are going to translate, athleticism going to translate. She showed all of that repeatedly. I think it's interesting too, because this draft coming up has some wild storylines, not the least of which is the number one pick involves Dallas, which is significant to me because Dallas already has Paige Beckers, right? And so Paige Becker is one of the biggest stars in the sport. And now they pick first. And it becomes really interesting because AZ Fudd is right there in some mocks as the number one overall pick. Not everybody agrees with this. This isn't a consensus, but AZ is certainly somebody that is in consideration for the number one overall pick. And I want to stress, Caroline, she should be for her play. But also, it becomes, let's say, at least something that has to be factored, talked about, a conversation for Dallas that Paige and AZ are in a public relationship. So you've got two people that you'd be putting together as teammates, which on the one hand can be a beautiful story, and that's the synergy that we're all going to love. And if she gets drafted there, we'll look at it and say, look at that, putting them back together. They played together at UConn. They're in a relationship, all of these great things that come together. But there's also sort of the complication to me of what happens if, God forbid, at some point that relationship goes a little sour. Like what happens if they no longer have that same connection? What happens if they break up? What happens in those situations? Like that's the reason so many companies in corporate America don't like hiring couples, because if the couple ends up not being a couple, now you have a totally different issue. So it's interesting because basketball should stand for basketball alone in the draft conversation. I'm not sure that's always possible, but in this situation for Dallas particularly, I think they are going to have to at least look at every scenario and play every what if out as they try and figure out what the value of AZ is to their organization.
Yeah, I mean, AZ is in contention for the number one overall pick for good reason. She's one of the best shooters in this draft. Like, Dallas has a lot of needs, but they need size and they need shooting. Lauren Betts fills that size. AZ Fudd fills that shooting need. You bring up their connection, obviously teammates at UConn. They are in a relationship. I think if you're Dallas, you just have to continue to focus on what's the best for your basketball team. I think the fact that AZ Fudd and Paige have not just that connection as teammates, but have that connection as significant others, I think that can only be the cherry on top. I think the concern of what if their relationship goes sour, I don't think that you can worry about that. You have to worry about what is going to help our basketball team develop, what's going to help us win the most games possible moving forward. Of course, you want to listen to your star player, the foundation of your franchise, and that's Paige Beckers. Of course, you're going to talk to her. Of course, you're going to take her wants and needs and her thoughts into consideration. But if you're Dallas, it has to be basketball. Everything else can just kind of be the cherry on top. I think, though, a few games is not going to completely throw out your skill or what you've done for the entirety of a career. But I think you also have to look at AZ's last 3 games, the biggest and most pivotal games that UConn have had in their schedule. That UConn against AZ against South Carolina shot 20% from the field. She only had 8 points, 1 rebound, and 5 assists. Against Notre Dame, she shot only 40% from the field. Against UNC, she only shot 30% from the field. She only had 13 and 10 points against Notre Dame and North Carolina, respectively. That's not going to take away what AZ has done in the entirety of her career. That's not going to take away the level of maturity that AZ Fudd has that will absolutely instantly translate to the W. But let's keep in mind, UConn does play in the Big East. UConn does not have the same level of competition that maybe a player in the SEC has, or a player in the ACC has, or a player in the Big Ten has. So what you do in the tournament matters. What you do against defensive teams like Notre Dame and South Carolina, that has to matter. That's not going to knock AZ down to the middle of the first round or the bottom of the first round. Like, let's not get that twisted. But that is at least a new data point and something else to consider as we start to weigh the pros and the cons of the number 1 overall pick. I think it's also important to point out the international presence in this year's draft as well. Awa Pham, a Spanish player. Her name's also been in contention for a top 3 pick, potentially even the number 1 overall pick. I will acknowledge what I do not know. I don't know Awa Pham. I haven't watched Awa Pham. I cover women's college basketball in the WNBA. So I will acknowledge my ignorance there, but I think important to point out that she also is in consideration for the number 1 overall pick, or at least a top 3 pick.
Important to point out also that there's a long-term opportunity for the W to try and figure out how to better, I think, educate on some of these international players, because it becomes an issue every year right now. There's so much international greatness. It's something you and I both know firsthand. Like, we work together at SportsCenter on Snapchat at ESPN. And long before Luka Doncic was a name that anyone was paying attention to, we were doing daily rips of highlights on Luka Doncic and talking about it on SportsCenter on Snapchat, because we all knew he was going to be drafted. And that was the launching pad. We were literally sitting on ESPN shows saying, pay attention to this kid, Luka Doncic. He's playing against grown men. He's an adult playing in European basketball. By the time he got to the NBA, plenty of fans, especially young fans, knew about him. The W's got to figure out a way to do the same for players like OFM, because it is better for the draft. As somebody that covers the NFL draft every year, it is better for the draft when there's name recognition, especially for the first overall pick. The draft less than a week away. We will have plenty of fun with that. But we are already into the Major League Baseball season, so it's time to get down to the dirty with some of the big storylines early in the MLB season. Jordan Shusterman going to join us next.
What do you think was kind of misunderstood about George Pickens prior to him arriving in Dallas?
I don't know. It was so many things that I feel like that was misunderstood. They feel like his attitude was off. And I mean, he come in the league at 19 years old. What do you expect out of a guy, and you want him to be your receiver one?
Right.
I feel like that's kind of crazy. But keeping him within the guidelines, letting him be himself at the same time, I feel like was probably the best thing for him. And I knew that it was gonna have him comfortable here in Dallas.
What was your impression of him? Do you feel like you have a friendship with Giannis now?
I feel like he was just my friend. Like, I didn't even see him as just a basketball player, Giannis Antetokounmpo. I was just like that's just my guy. Cause we were just chilling. Like, he took me to his home. He took me to his first we did his first dunk in his neighborhood. So like, he was just showing me around. And I think we still check up on each other.
Very
I just need to go to one of his games, which I promised him.
Sending everybody in motion. He waits, pulls it, throws it, big completion. Can they get on the board? And he is in. That's a touchdown for C.J. Wyndham. 2 touchdowns last week. Now he gets his first touchdown of this game.
This is a spectacular play by Harper. I mean, because this is a zone read, and it's really an RPO. Harper sees it and then is able to hit Wyndham coming across the field in a matter of milliseconds there.
Who is your first player to team fit that you absolutely love?
Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end of Oregon, to the Chiefs. And this was basically a post-combine reaction, basically Vernon Davis style numbers athletically. And so I think it was validating to see kind of him put those numbers up athletically, his speed, explosion, change of direction. He feels like a player that is not going to drop very far in this draft, especially in a draft where there aren't a ton of blue chip players.
The Red Sox at 2-7 have the worst record in Major League Baseball. They're the only team that has yet to win 3 games. Now, it is important to note it's a long season. We're not going to panic yet, but maybe we'll panic once we get some insight from our dear friend Jordan Shusterman joining us on the show. Jordan, all right, we acknowledge it's a very long season. So with the Red Sox starting so slow, what's your level of concern for this Red Sox season?
Well, friends, you know what's worse than 2-7? 2-8, which is what they are after last night. As that tweet is just a day late, and I bring that up because while it is a long season, when you're in the American League East, every additional game that you fall behind is a little bit more treacherous to get back. And for the Boston Red Sox to have the worst record in baseball, even through 10 games, and the way that they are losing games, the things that they are struggling with are a combination of things that are probably maybe legitimate to be worth concerned about in the long haul, but also strictly from an optics standpoint. I think that's really what they're struggling with a lot of the new players that they're bringing in struggling, and some of the old players really not, maybe thriving elsewhere. And so it is kind of a tough combination there for the Boston Red Sox, and the record kind of speaks for itself.
I do want to kind of stick on that for a second because just for me personally as a baseball fan, I don't overreact until at least Memorial Day. But when you're watching this Red Sox teams, what are some things specifically that you think, oh no, it's only April, but that's going to be an issue in June and July?
Yeah, I mean, this was a team that was supposed to be built on pitching and defense, right? And if your pitching is not going to be reliable in that regards, we looked at the roster and we said, okay, well, this team's probably not going to score as many runs as it did a year ago. And if they're also not going to be playing good defense or pitching well, then what is this team built on? And so I think that's where we really are going to have to see what this team is made of in the coming weeks. And again, the schedule is not necessarily going to get any easier. So they have a lot to prove here in the coming weeks, or they're going to be in too deep of a hole.
All right, so from bad teams to good players, Alvarez on an absolute heater starting this season so far. Now vaulted all the way up the odds boards, put himself in third to win AL MVP for all the degenerates out there like myself. Should we be buying a little bit of MVP stock, or is it too early for me to at least be joy?
I do not hate that at all. I think this is someone who has proven in the past to be one of the best hitters on the planet. And the question with Jordan has always been, can he stay on the field? And in this case, I think this season, the more relevant part is maybe how good are the Astros going to be, because I am not concerned whatsoever with how good Jordan Alvarez is. He is one of the best. Like I said, I mean, basically since he got to the major leagues, he has looked like one of the best hitters in baseball. And so last year was a lost season due to injuries that were seemingly mismanaged by the roster or by the team itself. And also, this is someone who's already had surgeries on both knees. He was dealing with hand issues last year. And so his injury track record is bad enough to where you kind of always got to be skeptical that he's going to put up a full season of plate appearances. Last year, what was weird is it was really the only prolonged stretch where we've seen him actually struggle when he has played. So that, I think, gave some people some pause coming into the season. But clearly, at least for now, he is healthy and he is unbelievable. So that is not at all a wild MVP pick, although there are some good players in the American League, as you probably know.
You know, I know that we all have Connor Griffin fever. I get it. But I don't want the obsession with one rookie to overshadow what we've actually seen from another, and that's Chase DeLauter. He's off to an absolutely red-hot start with the Guardians. He's leading the majors in home runs. Is he going to be the household name that we didn't see coming this season?
You know, that is also a good name to transition away from after Jordan Alvarez, because Chase DeLauter has been, when he plays, very, very, very good at baseball. However, if you think Jordan Alvarez has been injury prone, the degree to which Chase DeLauter has been hurt over his professional career is honestly staggering. I mean, this is a guy that was drafted in 2022 and had, I believe, only played 138 minor league games in 3 seasons before he got called up at the end of last year in October. And now he's in the middle of Cleveland's lineup. I was there last night. You know, Cleveland's my closest ball club, so I get to watch this guy up close. And he, even as a rookie, does look like one of their more advanced hitters. So there's going to be some struggles with him. Again, from a durability standpoint, Cleveland is going to be cautious of managing his workload. But the talent is definitely there. He is far less of a proven commodity, obviously, than someone like Jordan Alvarez. But the talent is there for him to be one of their best hitters all season. It's just going to be a matter of can he stay on the field, because, frankly, it just hasn't happened for him during his career, unfortunately, so far.
You guys will not prevent me from overhyping. Thank you very much. Chase Mace. We don't need Chase Mace. We need Connor Griffin. All right, we've waited this long to get into Connor Griffin talk. Although, let's be honest, all right, I'll give Caroline a lot of credit. When we were talking about Connor didn't make it up to the big, she's like, he's not hitting all that well. It's like he's going to be fine. 1 for 9 in his opening series this past weekend. So how do we evaluate a young player that obviously everybody has all eyes on and now has a very stacked bank account? How do we appropriately evaluate the beginning of his career?
Yeah, I mean, Griffin's another one where it's not obviously because of injuries, but he just hasn't played that much. And so he got here so fast. We don't see teenage position players very often. And I think with Connor Griffin, I mean, you saw it in literally his first career at bat, where facing Kyle Bradish, I believe, what does he get? Slider, curveball. And when Bradish missed, he, hit it into the gap and had an RBI double in his first career at bat. I don't know if he has a hit since then, as you mentioned. So I think he's going to keep kind of getting that diet of off-speed pitches. That said, in that at bat, and just when you look at what he's done in professional baseball, this is someone that is clearly capable of making adjustments very quickly. So I do think that there's going to be an adjustment period for any hitter that is this young trying to face the best pitchers in the world. But all we've seen from him since he did get drafted is the ability to see what he needs to work on and make those adjustments quickly. So I do think that Connor Griffin as a Rookie of the Year pick is probably not as safe at this stage. Like, I look at him as someone who, as the youngest player in baseball, is going to show flashes of brilliance and also kind of go through some cold stretches. I compared it on our podcast to what Bobby Witt Jr.'s rookie season looked like, which, considering the context and him as a rookie, was amazing. He had 20 homers, 30 steals, but on the whole, it was more average, and I believe he finished 4th in Rookie of the Year. That's kind of more along my expectations for Connor Griffin this year, which, again, for a 19 or 20-year-old, he'll be 20 soon, is unbelievable. But I still think it's the beginning of a special career, and we might not get it all right away.
Let's stick on the theme of fresh faces in Major League Baseball. This one, at least in kind of a different form. It's Tony Vitello. I think he's obviously a very interesting person. I think this is such a fascinating experiment that the Giants are doing, bringing Tony Vitello up from the college ranks with no Major League Baseball experience. What's your early impression of him through the first handful of games in San Francisco?
I mean, this is a tough one to talk about just because the Giants as a roster, just focus on that, are already as we are seeing, a flawed unit, a flawed roster, a flawed group of hitters, a flawed group of pitchers. Some of this we could have seen coming. Some of this is definitely below it, but I think we would have expected. Now, that said, you still have to look at Tony Vitello and some of the decisions he's made in game, in addition to some of the ways he's handled post-game press conferences, pre-game press conferences, whatever, and at least think that he is part of this slow start. I think that's maybe a little bit harsh for me as someone who does cover college baseball and cares about college baseball and has thought already a lot about Tony Vitello over the last decade. I'm just fascinated so much about this entire thing, regardless of the record, whether they were undefeated or winless or where they're at right now, which is not a very good spot. I think that he is just a character that we've not really had in this kind of position in Major League Baseball. So I hope for his sake he can kind of figure out how to balance the everyday realities of Major League Baseball as opposed to what his experience was in college. But this is another point I made on the show the other day. Like, Tennessee's best season in 2022, I know they win the national championship in 2024, but from a regular season standpoint, they lost 9 games in 2022. And guess what, folks? They've already lost 8 in 2026 with the San Francisco Giants. So it's a different life. It's a long season, as we mentioned. But I think Tony V is still kind of getting used to all aspects of the job before the game, during the game, and after the game.
Yeah, y'all, we're burying the lead here. I'm just getting used to how dashingly good looking he is. Like, it is unfair to be
You're
a manager.
just now getting used to that.
I mean, yes, I like it. Every time we see him, I'm like, that's jarring. All right, like, look, let's just if you hire an actor to play you in the movie and it's going to be a downgrade from how good looking you are in person, I'm just saying that's not fair. That's a Tony V. Like, I'm all in. Look, congratulations. Good. Okay, fine. We'll get back to baseball. We'll get back to important baseball. One of the big stories. Look at that. Just look at the beard. The beard. Okay, I'll get back.
I agree.
I'm
with
the
you.
big
I'm with you.
I mean,
Wow.
I mean, Jordan, you can grow that. Like, I want to point out, I haven't shaved in a week. And nobody can
so
tell
this
on
is
the
really
camera.
more projecting. This is you wishing that you could. I get it. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay.
I mean, look at that's a week. That's a week's growth.
Great.
Okay,
Looks
we'll get back to
amazing.
baseball. Hey, thank you so much, Caroline. I appreciate you. That's the tag team partner I need. Off-season story. One of the big off-season stories were Japanese stars coming to the U.S. All right, so I'm going to give you 3 names. All right, Murakami, Imai, or Okamoto, and give me, of those 3, who's been the most impressive in their first MLB action to you.
So we've only got 2 starts of Imai so far with Houston. Okamoto has definitely looked solid. I think Murakami is the one to focus on because he really was the most divisive prospect. And you saw that in the fact that he ended up on the White Sox. This is someone who earlier in his career in NPB was considered a generational power hitter. And I think what we've seen so far, even through 10 games, is that like that is in there. And this is also maybe a flawed hitter that you are going to see maybe get exposed at some point in terms of when teams figure out exactly how to attack him. But if he's at least able to work his walks and kind of wait for his pitch, he's going to strike out. That is going to happen. That's just the nature of his swing and the nature of his approach. But his power is so legit that like if he can just draw enough walks and learn how to attack aggressively at the right pitches, the dude's going to hit 30 homers in the majors. I mean, this is a guy that hit over 50 in his best season in Japan. And that is so far ahead of what you really ever see over there in that league that is what makes him so special. So I think White Sox fans have to be super excited about the start that he's got on. And in a lot of respects, he has been exactly the salve that I think they were looking for, strictly from a vibe standpoint, because this is still a team at the very early stages of rebuilding with a lot that is not going well. And so to have this guy, this guy's a really big deal back home in Japan. And for him to be on the White Sox, a team that maybe isn't going to win much this year, but I know that there are a lot of Japanese fans that are now tuning into White Sox games to see what this guy's doing at the highest level, and it's been really fun to watch.
Jordan, we can't let you go without talking about what I think has been far and beyond the biggest story in baseball this season, and that's the implementation of ABS. Your early thoughts of how that's kind of impacted the game.
It is. I was so excited for it, getting to see it a little bit at the minor league level, seeing it in the fall league and spring training. And I think what's been so fun is just how much we're learning literally every day about how this is working and the human psychology behind these challenges. Yes, there is an element of this that is taking out the human element, right? And taking away the umpire's ability to call every single pitch. But this is a perfect balance, at least for me so far right now, of adding a strategic element, an entertaining element. It just introduces so many different components that teams are still figuring it out. I mean, I think that is maybe the best part. And this was the point I made over and over during spring training, is that sure, spring training gives you an understanding of how the system functions and what it looks like when it happens, when it is in play and when it comes into play during a game. But from a strategic standpoint and from teams actually using it and understanding how to use it or not use it in a competitive setting, all of these teams are still figuring it out. However many Zoom meetings they had over the offseason about what strategies they're going to do, in a lot of cases, hitters are just saying, screw it. I think that was a bad call. I'm just going to challenge in the third inning. And if you get it wrong, you're putting your team at a pretty big disadvantage for the rest of the game. And so I'm so excited to just see how teams develop their strategies, become more disciplined with it, see what rules they develop internally. I just talked to a player yesterday about kind of what the rules they have internally, because that's what's so fun about this, is that it is adding an element of both strategy and entertainment that I think so far the fans are really enjoying, both at home and in the ballpark.
Baseball Barbacast, check it out. I say this to you guys all the time, but I'm just telling you, since you're here with us this morning, the palpable joy that you guys have talking about baseball is just, it makes that show an infectious listen every time. So really appreciate how much you give to us, listening to it all the time. Check out Baseball Barbacast. Follow him on Twitter, X at J_Shusterman_. We appreciate your time as always. Thanks for all the insight. I'm going to keep growing the beard, and then we're going to figure out when we can panic next time we talk to you, Jordan.
Looking forward to it. Thank you guys as always.
Thanks, Jordan.
I'm kidding. We all know I can't actually grow the beard. All right, coming up next, I can't grow the beard, but I can tell you about tournament expansion in the NCAA. It's happening.
Who are some of the other like UFC combat sports golfers that we might not know about? Like, who's sneaky good?
You know what, man? I don't think there really is anybody else. Daniel Cormier is starting to play. He's absolutely
How's his game?
awful.
Oh,
he's
no.
awful. He talks so much trash. He is so bad. But I tell you what, though, he is an athlete, and he's just like it. Golf's like anything. The more you do it, the better you get.
The Dallas Mavericks, are they still taking Cooper Flagg, Corey?
He is legitimately, as a 6'8" wing who does everything at a high level, shows up every day, competes his ass off.
The way his handle has improved since high school to Duke to now suggests that this guy can be a MVP candidate, not just a multi-time all-star as a role player, a high-end star role player, but a mega star.
Do you feel pressure that this is America's birthday, this is the White House, you have to represent?
Hell yeah. I do feel pressure. I feel pressure that, I got to go out there and represent for the United States, and I got to go out there and I feel like I'm going to be expected to go out there and win this fight. I'll probably be a favorite. There's pressure right there too. I put pressure myself. I need to finish. It's been too long.
Johnson to the end zone, caught. Guess who? C.J. Jefferson.
And talking to the coaches this week, they said that's your playmaker. That's the guy that Jerome Johnson has the most confidence in. And there you are in 4th and goal, and you throw it right at the goal line, right at the yellow line at the wall. Terrific throw. Nice catch.
Great execution there for New Mexico. They had to have a play.
I'm not sure more is better, but we're going to find out. NCAA expected to finalize expansion of the men's and women's tournament to 76 teams. 76 looks to be the number. We went from 64 to 68. Now we're going to go to 76. You hear the just absolute angst in my voice, Caroline, because I feel like inevitably we're going to go to 932. So, I don't know what we're doing here. What we are doing is we're looking at expansion of the tournament. A lot goes into this. It will happen. Ross Dellinger was told proposal would add 8 games to the first 4, 24 teams playing in the opening round. How do you feel about this one, Caroline?
I hate it. I absolutely positively hate it. Now, if you are somebody who financially benefits from the NCAA tournament, if you are the conferences, if you're the TV networks, you love this. Because more inventory means more ad dollars, means more money in your pocket. So that's great for you. And that's the only reason that I can point to as to why this change is happening and why this move is being made. Because it means more money. Now, that's something that I have had to just be okay with as a college sports fan. I think that college sports fans as a whole have had to just be okay with acknowledging that a lot of these changes that are being made in college sports, whether it's, conference realignment or tournament expansion, college football playoff expansion, whatever it is, it's for one reason and one reason only. It's money. Don't let anybody trick you into thinking that this is better for the sport or this is better for competitive edge. No, it's for money. So as long as, the sooner that you come to terms with that, the better. It's just, I don't see any reason other than money why this change is being made. You can tell me, oh, well, this expands the field. So, the Auburns and the Miami of Ohio debate that we had this past season, that'll do away with that and deserving teams will get in. No. All that does is just expand it. So the 77th and 78th teams in the country feel screwed rather than the 69th and the 70th teams feeling like they got screwed. So it doesn't eliminate that. It just expands that. Look no further than the college football playoff this past year. Vanderbilt, Texas, these teams that were right on the bubble felt like they got screwed out of a 12-team college football playoff, whereas the Florida States that were the 5th best team in the country, those were the ones that felt screwed in a 4-team playoff. So it doesn't eliminate that. You might say more games is a good thing. Sure. Yeah, I'm always for more games that matter. I'm always for more games of impact, but do we really need it? Do we really feel like the 70, second and 73rd and 74th teams in the country are really championship contenders? Of course not. And you're not going to convince me of that. So I don't see any reason why we are actually doing this in terms of being better for the fans and better for the sport other than money.
Yeah, all of this is just dumb. I hate it. And look, I'm a massive fan of UNLV basketball. Grew up going to, watching, and loving UNLV basketball games. I have a Larry Johnson signed jersey 3 feet from me right now. I love UNLV basketball. I long for the days where I can watch UNLV in the NCAA tournament. But let me be clear. Mostly I long for the days of UNLV basketball being good, right? Not just making the tournament because now we're letting so many teams in that essentially everybody makes the tournament. I long for the days where my favorite basketball team was actually nationally relevant. I long for the days where I could watch the team that I grew up watching be great. I don't long to sit there and say, oh my God, I can't wait to watch UNLV versus some random Nashville Auto Diesel College nobody's ever heard of in a game that we really shouldn't care about because neither of these teams are any good. At the end of the day, this is what I beg all of us. Don't watch it. Like, the honest answer to this is don't consume it, because the only way we're ever going to stop this constant expansion that doesn't need to happen is by not putting eyeballs on it. And that's the unfortunate truth. Like, because Caroline is so right when she says this is all about money. When 97 of the top 100 live TV events last year were sporting events, what does that tell us? More sports, because sports are the one thing that you don't pause and watch back. Sports are the one thing you don't record and watch at your leisure. You don't stream it whenever you feel like it. You're in it for the moment, which means advertisers can charge more for sports content because you're glued to your TV and you can't skip the ads. That's why sports work. That's why sports still make money in live game formats. So what do you want? You want more sports windows because then there's more money to be made. How do you stop this from happening? You don't watch. The problem is we don't have the discipline to do that. The problem is we will watch these games and we will inevitably bet on these games, which is another way that everybody seems to make money. So as long as money's being placed in betting accounts and as long as betting sponsors are making money, and then the TV partners are making money because they're selling the ad revenue, which means they're giving that money back to the schools, all of the responsibility to stop this asinine expansion comes right back to our feet. If we don't want it, and I don't want it, the only way that we can stop these inevitable expansions, Caroline, is if we stop watching the trash that they're putting in front of us. If we say no to watching it, that's the only real recourse any of us have. Otherwise, it's going to go to 76, and then it's going to go to 80, and then it's going to go to 90, and they're just going to keep going and going and going because at the end of the day, they want to make money.
But that's not going to happen. Like, people aren't just going to not watch it. That's the thing. And that's exactly why they're doing it, is because they know that they have us. They know that we are wrapped around their finger. They know whatever product that they put out there on the court, on the field, wherever in whatever sport, we are going to watch it. So they can do whatever they want. They, being the NCAA, being the TV dollars, being the conferences, can do whatever they want. You want to expand the NCAA tournament to 95 teams? Be my guest. People will watch it. And I keep hearing the argument of, well, this, it does away with the importance of the regular season. I don't really think that it does. Because when your favorite team is playing your rival team in January and February, you're probably still going to watch it, whether it has massive implications for the tournament or not. You're probably still going to watch your favorite team in its conference tournament because it's your favorite team and you're going to watch it. So maybe it does dilute the regular season a little bit because each game has a little bit less of an impact, but I think we're still going to watch it. And that's the thing. They know we will watch no matter what. And as long as we watch, which we will, no matter what it looks like, no matter how big the field is, they are going to make money. So why not continue to create opportunities to make money? Because even if the product is worse, and I do think the product with 76 teams is worse, I'm still going to watch. You're still going to watch. We're all going to watch. It's going to make everyone millions and millions of dollars, and they're going to continue to push whatever helps their bottom line until the end of time. That's the unfortunate reality.
No, you're right. And look, we've seen it in college football. We've seen the argument that, like, well, this is going to devalue the regular season, but then you see the ratings in the regular season, and what do you know? Like, it doesn't look like that's actually happening, right? TV ratings are, exactly. That's where, I've seen Billis talk a lot about this too, obviously, in the bigger conversations about college basketball. At the end of the day, all I'm saying is that we, and I mean we as in the media and we as in fans, everybody involved, we can't complain about something simply because we don't have the self-control to not consume it. Like, at the end of the day, if we don't like that the NFL is going to 100 different streaming services, stop buying the services and they'll stop doing it. If we don't like expansion, stop watching and they'll stop doing it. Don't stop watching us, though. Come back tomorrow, 9 a.m. for more Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton, going off to get married. Congratulations, Caroline.
Thank you.